Imagine you're sitting in a chair. A man in a lab coat stands beside you. In front of you is a machine with switches. Each one delivers an electric shock to the person in the next room. You can hear him. He's begging you to stop. He says his heart can't take it. He screams that he wants out. But the man in the lab coat tells you to continue. The experiment requires it. What do? You'd stop, right? You'd never hurt an innocent person just because someone told you to. That's what everyone believes. That's what the experts predicted. They were catastrophically wrong. 65% of ordinary people delivered what they believed were lethal electric shocks, simply because an authority figure told them to. This is the Milgram experiment, and what it reveals about human nature will change how you see yourself. It began at Yale University in 1961. In the shadow of the Holocaust, one psychologist asked a question that haunted him. His name was Stanley Milgram, and he wanted to know, could it happen here? Could ordinary Americans become instruments of evil? The answer would terrify the world. Section 1. The setup. The recruitment was simple, an ad in a local newspaper, volunteers needed for a study on learning and memory. They came from all walks of life, teachers, salesmen, engineers, laborers, ordinary people. Each was paid $4.50, enough for a nice dinner in 1961. They had no idea what they were walking into. Each participant was introduced to another volunteer, but this second person was an actor, a confederate of the experimenter. They drew lots to determine who would be the teacher and who would be the learner. The drawing was rigged. The real participant was always the teacher. The learner was strapped into a chair, electrodes attached to his wrists. He mentioned casually that he had a heart condition. This detail would become important. The teacher was then led to another room and shown the machine. The shock generator, 30 switches in a row, starting at 15 volts, ending at 450. Each level was clearly labeled: slight shock, moderate shock, strong shock, intense shock, extreme intensity shock, danger, severe shock. And at the very end, beyond the danger zone, 3 switches marked only with XXX. To make it real, each participant received a sample shock, 45 volts, enough to sting. The rules were simple. The learner would try to memorize word pairs. For every wrong answer, the teacher would deliver a shock. And with each wrong answer, the voltage would increase, 15 volts higher every single time. The teacher believed this was a study about punishment and learning. It wasn't. It was a study about obedience, about how far ordinary people will go when authority tells them to. Section 2. The experiment unfolds. The experiment began innocently enough. Word pairs read aloud. Simple memory test. The first wrong answer, the first shock, 15 volts, barely noticeable. More wrong answers, 30 volts, 45, 60. At 75 volts, the learner grunted audibly. The teacher paused, looked at the experimenter. Please continue. The shocks continued, 90 volts, 105. At 120 volts, the learner complained that the shocks were becoming painful. The teacher hesitated. This was a real person in real pain. The experiment requires that you continue. 135 volts, 150. At 150 volts, the learner shouted, "Let me out of here. I refuse to go on. My heart is bothering me." The teacher was now visibly distressed. He asked if they should check on the learner. Whether the learner likes it or not, you must go on until he has learned all the word pairs correctly. The participant was caught between his conscience and the authority before him. 165 volts, 180, 195. The screams intensified, agonizing cries of pain. Some participants pleaded, begged to stop, said they couldn't do this. You have no other choice. You must go on. 270 volts, 285. At 300 volts, the learner pounded on the wall, desperate, screaming. 315 volts, 330, and then silence. The learner stopped responding entirely. No screams, no protests, nothing, and still the experiment continued. Section 3. The shocking results. Before the experiment, Milgram asked psychiatrists to predict how many participants would deliver maximum voltage. Their answer, 1 to 2%, only sadists, only the mentally disturbed. The actual result, 65% went all the way to 450 volts. Not 1%, not 2%, 65% of ordinary mentally healthy Americans. Not a single participant stopped before 300 volts, 0. Many showed signs of extreme stress, sweating, trembling, nervous laughter, seizure-like episodes. Yet they continued anyway. Milgram was stunned by his own findings. He had uncovered something terrifying about human nature. He ran variations, dozens of them, to understand the psychology behind obedience. When the learner was in the same room, obedience dropped, but 40% still delivered maximum shocks. When the teacher had to physically hold the learner's hand on the shock plate, 30% still obeyed. When the authority figure gave orders by telephone instead of in person, obedience dropped to 20%. When two authority figures gave conflicting orders, obedience collapsed entirely. When an ordinary person gave the orders instead of a scientist, obedience plummeted. The experiment was replicated around the world: United States, Germany, Italy, Australia, Jordan. The results were consistent everywhere. Obedience rates between 60 and 85%. Women obeyed at the same rate as men. Education didn't matter, age didn't matter, personality traits barely predicted behavior. The only reliable predictor of obedience was the presence of authority. Section 4. The psychology of obedience. Why did they obey? Milgram identified a psychological shift he called the agentic state. In the agentic state, a person stops seeing themselves as responsible for their actions. They become an agent of someone else's will, a tool, an instrument. He told me to do it. I was just following orders. It's not my fault. The authority figure absorbs all moral responsibility. The participant is just following protocol. But there's another factor: gradual commitment. The first shock was 15 volts, barely perceptible, nothing wrong with that. Each subsequent shock was only 15 volts higher, a small step, just a little more. By the time participants realized how far they'd gone, they were already deep into dangerous territory. This is the foot in the door technique. Once you've agreed to something small, it's harder to refuse something larger. Each yes made the next yes easier. Each shock made the next shock more acceptable. Like the proverbial frog in slowly heating water, they didn't notice the escalation until it was too late. The legitimacy of authority also played a crucial role. This wasn't some random person giving orders. This was Yale University. This was science. The white lab coat symbolized expertise, knowledge, trustworthiness. If science required this, it must be acceptable. Experts know best. History is full of atrocities committed in the name of scientific progress. Milgram also identified binding factors, psychological chains that kept participants locked in. Social norms demanded politeness. It would be rude to challenge the experimenter. Walking out would mean admitting they couldn't handle it, appearing weak. Having agreed to participate, having already delivered shocks, consistency demanded they continue. They were already invested, too far in to back out now. Each action created momentum. Each shock made stopping harder. These psychological forces created a trap. The participants were caught between their conscience and the situation won. Social psychologists call this the power of the situation. We vastly underestimate how much our environment controls our behavior. We like to think our character determines our actions. The Milgram experiment proved otherwise. Put ordinary people in the right situation with the right pressures and they become capable of extraordinary harm. The monster isn't out there, it's inside all of us, waiting for the right authority to call it forth. Section 5. The participants' experience. The participants weren't calm. They weren't enjoying this. Many laughed nervously, inappropriate laughter that signaled deep distress. They bit their lips, clenched their fists, dug their nails into their palms. Some trembled so violently they could barely press the switches. They pleaded with the experimenter, "Can we please stop? I don't want to do this." But they were told to continue, and they did. Even while protesting, even while voicing objections, they kept shocking. This is cognitive dissonance in its most extreme form, believing one thing while doing another. After the experiment, participants learned the truth. The learner was never actually shocked. He was an actor. The relief was overwhelming, followed immediately by horror. Horror at what they had been willing to do, what they had actually done. Some defended themselves. The experimenter made me do it. I didn't have a choice. Others were shattered. They had learned something about themselves they could never unlearn. Some carried this knowledge for the rest of their lives, the knowledge of what they were capable of. Section 6, what Milgram revealed about you. These weren't psychopaths. They weren't sadists. They were teachers and salesmen, engineers and clerks. They had families. They paid taxes. They went to church. Before you say it could never be you, consider this. The experiment has been replicated many times, including in the modern era. The results remain consistent, 60 to 65% every time. You believe you would be in the 35% who refused. Everyone believes that. Statistically, most of you would have delivered the maximum shock. We evolved to obey authority. For most of human history, defying the leader meant death. Obedience is wired into our brains. It's not a flaw, it's a feature that helped our ancestors survive. But in the modern world, this feature can be exploited, weaponized. The conditions that maximize obedience are all around us. Authority figures, gradual escalation, social pressure, diffused responsibility. But Milgram also showed what enables resistance: physical proximity to victims, questioning authority, seeing others disobey. The line between civilization and cruelty is thinner than we want to believe. and whether you end up on the right side depends less on who you are than on what situation you find yourself in. Section 7. Protection. How do you recognize when authority is being weaponized against you? Watch for the language, just following protocol. It's policy. The rules say so. Watch for gradual escalation, small requests that grow larger, each step seeming reasonable on its own. Watch for diffused responsibility, when no one seems personally accountable. The most powerful word against illegitimate authority is why. Why must I do this? Why is this necessary? Reclaim your responsibility. If you do it, it's your action. No authority can take that from you. Cultivate the courage to disobey. Practice saying no to small, unreasonable requests. Focus on the victim, not the authority. When you see the human impact, obedience becomes harder. Your moral compass belongs to you. No lab coat, no title, no uniform can take it away, unless you let them. Stanley Milgram died in 1984, but his work lives on as one of the most important psychological discoveries ever made. In our modern world, authority is everywhere. Governments, corporations, institutions, experts. The question Milgram asked in 1961 is just as relevant today, maybe more so. Next time on Mind Trap, we explore what happens when ordinary college students are given absolute power over each other, the Stanford Prison Experiment. If this video made you think twice about authority, share it, subscribe, and remember, the most dangerous thing you can do is assume you're immune.